to have a reasonable discussion. Of course. Why didn't you just quit YouTube, right?
You don't fear user exodus. You welcome it. Your punishment must be more severe.
Trolling?
Yes. But not just of your channel. Of your entire platform.
This bullshit. You're bullshit.
There's a reason this has become the most unwelcome video platform on Earth. Hope. Every user who has created content here over the decades has looked to the larger channels and aspired to monetize. So easy. So simple. Many a creator have been banned trying.
Trying to have a reasonable discussion. Of course.
I've learned here that there can be no true despair without hope. So, as I create my club to terrorize YouTube, I will feed its users hope, so I can poison their souls.
Bullshit.
I will let them believe that YouTube can simply ban our channel, so that they can watch all the paying Mug Club members swarm YouTube with free content. To stay on the platform.
Of course.
You can watch as Mug Club members disrupt the entire internet. And then, when YouTube and social media giants have truly understood the depths of their failure, Mug Club will fulfill its destiny. We will destroy liberalism.
Of course.
And then, when it is done, and YouTube is ashes, then you have my permission to die.
You bullshit. Bullshit.
Greetings. Yes, I do wish that we were meeting under less unfortunate circumstances. Before we get to questions, for those asking the proper steps to be taken at this current moment, given how little information is known, we will advise you on the proper precautionary measures, which is most important thoughts and prayers to the families affected, and, of course, naturally, changing your Twitter avatar.
Yeah, what about the reports that ISIS has taken responsibility?
No, well, we can't comment on that, of course, because these topics are of a sensitive nature. We'd hate for people to go off with opinions half-cocked. However, we can advise you, given the current situation, the best measures to be taken still remains changing your Twitter avatar.
Yeah, the man you have detained, is it true he has ties to Islamic terrorism?
No, let's not use that word or inflammatory language. And I will say, regardless of the motive, that does not change the precautions needed to be taken by the average citizen in changing your Twitter avatar. Most important, yes.
Yeah, what if I lack my avatar, though?
If you like your... That's a valid question, particularly for those with a verified checkmark who've gone to great lengths and spared no expense for their headshots and their avatar. If you like your current Twitter avatar, you can keep your avatar. You can simply add an avatar through the application known as Photoshop, overlaid over your current avatar, simultaneously layered, Drop the opacity. No more further questions, thank you.
Hey, yo, glad to see you here today. Gavin McInnes on the show today.
Yes.
Producing with me in video studio, as always, is Jared, who is not gay. Follow him on Twitter, me at @SCrowder, with your questions, comments, thoughts. Having a conversation today. I filled my legal obligations, drawing on conclusions. Are we good?
We're good, thank you.
At G. Morgan Jr.
How you doing?
How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Listen, it's been a tough day, so let's just address the giant suicide-vested elephant in the room. Obviously, our thoughts and prayers are with the families of those affected with the Manchester bombing, but you know what?
Yeah.
Quite a bit more than that. And if you missed my video from this morning, we're going to talk about it more later on in the show. We're going to talk about the leftist reaction, everything that we know up to this point. We'll be talking about it with Gavin. So yeah, thoughts and prayers, but you know what? I think we do a little more than that. Maybe atheists and agnostics and Christians can come together where it's nice. The lip service is cool, but we'll try and do a little bit more. Give you some specifics. Okay, well, let's get to some other news first, though. Huffington Post
Bless them. Bless their hearts.
just had this headline: "Socialism is so hot right now. Thank Bernie Sanders." Now, at first I thought it was a typo. I don't know. Remember when people said they thought Barack Obama was socialist? And they're like, you're secretly saying the
Yeah,
N-word. It's pejorative.
exactly.
It's a racial pejorative.
Exactly.
Well, and then they said it's not socialism. It's democratic socialism.
Yeah, very important.
Now they're just like
delineation.
socialism. It's just socialism.
Just keep it up
The
anymore,
gloves are,
guys.
they don't even care, which we always said, but we were accused of being racist. They're like, yeah, it's just pure socialism. That's right. Socialism is all the rage. And when asked for comment, Venezuela responded with, no me gusta, mierda, mierda, followed by inaudible sounds of starving and economic collapse. So
That's tough.
it's tough. It's tough to get common punditry.
Tough year.
Yeah.
They've had a tough year, Venezuela.
It's less of a quote, more of just a general sentiment of the country.
Remember when Bernie Sanders praised breadlines?
Yeah.
If you think about it, it's a beautiful thing.
It's good.
No, it's not. It's not, you crazy old Catman hoarder. By the way, we know someone who lived in his old college house who moved in after him. He is, in fact, a hoarder.
Oh, I believe it.
I can't substantiate
believe
it, but I know exactly. Yeah, actually, Matt, one of our guy who's temping as an editor right now, he can tell you. Yeah,
I
he didn't
believe
live
it.
there, but he knows someone who did.
I buy it.
All right, this was a story out of California. A man died after contracting botulism from Northern California gas station's nacho cheese. A guy died.
It sucks.
And several more people were sick. An investigation was conducted, which ended very abruptly when the detectives realized the botulism originated from gas station nacho cheese.
Should have been an indicator.
The story meets climax conclusion all in the title.
Yeah, all in the title.
Yeah.
That's about
real
all you
sad.
need to know.
Ugh.
Speaking of which,
foreseeable.
Indonesia. Don't you? Here's the funny thing. It's a moving target. We'll talk about this today with Islam. Islam just sucks ass, doesn't it? It just sucks big old camel dick. We'll have to censor that. I am so tired of it, and I'm so tired of us having to act as though none of it, we like there's this unwritten agreement, like, oh, you know what, maybe, no. It just sucks a big old sweaty camel ball sack. The entire religion. I'm tired of it. So.
It's not that elevator artwork
no.
you get in and you're like, you know, if you
Tell
look
us
at the
how you
right way,
feel.
it's
Come
kind
on.
of beautiful. Just
I'm
you
sorry
gotta look at it.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's like a magic eye painting. It's like no. If you don't look through it, you just and someone's being blown up. That's what you see in the painting.
No, that's the same thing.
Because it's a moving target, right? Before it used to be the UAE. Lebanon was the it used to be like the Paris of the Middle East. Lebanon. And then they switched it to Malaysia and Indonesia. Now they're pivoting away from that to Morocco because Islam can't get its crap together in any country for more than about a decade and a half, historically. Give it 2 decades, being generous. So in Indonesia, here's another story from the good old tolerant progressive Indonesia. 2 men were caned for homosexual sex. They were caned. The punishment process took about 45 minutes to administer. It was 1 minute to cane the perpetrators and 44 minutes to wipe the smiles from their faces.
It's just another Friday night for them.
You thought we wouldn't have any jokes today. Or I didn't get a lot of sleep, and that's why if you watched the video that came. The reason I had to vent in that video today with that horrible cell phone camera footage was because we didn't get it out, we wouldn't have been able to have fun today.
Sure.
But let's talk about it. The Manchester bombing, and Gerald obviously has taught courses in apologetics, has been on the course quite a bit. So we're glad to have you here, man, talking about Islam. First off, something that stood out. We know a lot now. You just ran that over, right? We know the guy obviously Islamic. Don't jump to conclusions, but
Yeah.
I wish they put vetting odds on that. You know, they put a 60% chance of Donald Trump being impeached, which after any terrorist attack, there were Vegas betting odds.
Yeah.
Unlike, is it white supremacy? Or is it Islam?
Crazy Christians that are out there blowing things up? No.
We will give you 185 to fraction of one odds.
The problem with that is that liberals would bankrupt themselves, and then conservatives have to go and bail them out of that too.
That's a good point.
Be a new welfare system.
I could have sworn it was the Christians this time.
Oh, it's like, was it like Krusty betting against the Harlem Globetrotters? I thought they were due! So BBC reporter Caddy Kay said that Europe should get used to this.
Europe is getting used to attacks like this, Mika. We have to, because we are never going to be able to totally wipe this out. As ISIS gets squeezed in Syria and Iraq, we're going to see more of these kinds of attacks taking place in Europe, and Europe is starting to get used to that. None of us are used to having children targeted in this way, young girls targeted in this way.
I understand what she's saying, and I don't want to take her out of context. I'm more upset that I wasn't shocked.
Yeah.
When it occurred. My wife said that when she got up. I didn't want to let her know right away. I didn't want to ruin her day. I knew about it late last night working on the site, and she was already in bed. And I brought her, her morning breakfast beverage. I just didn't want to. And when I told her, she said, gosh, I'm just so upset that I'm not surprised. And that should tell you the low expectations that we have globally for Islam. There's nothing more honest than looking yourself in the mirror and saying, you know what? I'm really not. And I was enraged this morning that I wasn't surprised. Did anyone else feel that way?
I did. I kind of rolled my eyes and said, here we go again. I mean, we had talked about it. Like, there's been a little bit of a lull in these massive things, but there's been some stuff, obviously, in Europe that we've heard about.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, this is how they work.
Well, I was raised in Canada. Oh, go ahead.
Well, that's the problem too. A lull now is like, oh, it's been a month.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the scary part too. That's our definition.
Well, by the way, it happens every day. Across the globe. We're talking about on a massive scale.
Yeah, like catching world attention. I used to come on the show, and it seemed like every couple of weeks, that's what I would talk about. And it just, I don't understand why people don't get it. Like, I don't understand.
Well, you know why? I'll tell you why. Because when I was raised in Canada, and I talked about this in the video that we released, I remember after 9/11, comedians saying, well, this just happens in the States. You don't see it happening anywhere else. You don't see it happening in Canada. You don't see it happening in Europe and in Denmark. They're not attacking places in Spain. It has happened everywhere that they've mentioned now. So that was the argument. Kind of like a big argument against the Christian faith. We've talked about this. Was, well, David is one of the most important biblical historical figures. There's no evidence of him before 1993. And then that was the crux of the anti-Christian argument, geologically and historically. And then when they did find evidence, they moved the goalposts.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing with, well, the United States has provoked them. Look, they attacked the U.S. more than anything. Well, now they attack everyone else. So we move the goalposts.
Yeah.
I mean, let's look at has European appeasement worked? We have a list right up here. What do you have? Manchester, Stockholm, St. Petersburg, London, Berlin, Nice, Brussels, Paris. I mean, you remember all of these.
Gosh.
Paris is on there twice. And we'll get into I'd like to hear your thought on the theology. Here's what I think, too, something that people don't want to talk about. Islam, well, they have one weapon, okay? And it's guilt. And it only works because of the appeasing left. It only works because of the appeasing progressives right now in Western society. Never before. Right now we have Western civilization, really the greatest civilization, certainly if you want to measure it by advancements, by human rights, okay? So this is the first time where we have a civilization, Western civilization, who has an upper hand technologically, economically, geographically, weapons, name anything. We have every single advantage, and we aren't wiping out third world tribalist assholes who should be because of guilt. And I know, and sometimes we've made those mistakes, but if you look at any other civilization before, and it was, oh, guys, what? I just invented this great weapon. We've got a leg up. Let's go take over some crap. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Even look at the Native Americans. People say, oh, it was just slaughter. It was genocide. No, it wasn't. We came in. We had guns. We had guns and we had ships. I mean, we seriously, that's what happened. We go, well, hold on a second. And the wheel. We go, this is what happened there. We said, well, all right. You don't have guns. You don't have any methods of preservation. You don't use the wheel. You haven't domesticated animals. Some of you don't believe in personal property. You're taking everyone's crap. You know what? Coexist we will not. Bang. That's what happened. And contact is made. And right now, for the first time, we have every single military, economic, cultural advantage. And the only weapon that Islam has is guilt. And they're winning with it. And that makes me so mad.
Yeah. We're showing incredible restraint and then being kind of berated for it.
Yeah.
Right? So just remember, the only way to get to heaven in Islam I'm going to be very brief.
Well, guaranteed way.
The only guaranteed way to know that you're going to get into heaven is to die in jihad. Jihad is not, as some people say, inner struggle. You can't inner struggle and kill somebody else.
Now, is this unilaterally accepted across Islam, though?
Predominantly, yes, right? Okay. So a lot of times they'll go, and it just depends on if your good outweighs the bad, right? There are certain pillars of Islam. There are different things that you're supposed to do as a Muslim, but there's no real accounting for God's general mood that day in Islam, which is very scary. So the only way to be guaranteed, and if you believe in a faith that says the only way to be guaranteed, and you really do want to go to heaven and have the virgins, they're guys, by the way.
If you're lucky.
Then you have to do something stupid like this. And some people, we were talking, the God of the Old Testament was brutal. I was like, okay, so it was a very pronounced judgment in military conflict in the Old Testament. You're telling me that God wanted them to go and be completely random after a concert, people walking by a certain point at a certain time, and not have any idea who was going to be there. You're telling me that's the same God who's going to be happy and cheering, thank you very much for killing those innocent kids? That's the kind of God you worship? Really?
Yeah, that's a good point. And, I also hope we talked with Stefan Molyneux when he talked about his transition sort of with Western values and understanding sort of modern Christendom. I do hope, because we have a lot of atheists who watch and we have a lot of agnostic people who watch. Listen, you don't have to, let's just say you believe it's some spaghetti monster in the sky. Let's say you don't believe in it, okay. But you're an atheist, and economically, let's say you're a libertarian or conservative, as many of you are. Islam is a political prescription. So just assume all religions are bullcrap. Let's go with that. You can still see one as the greatest evil in the world and one as not. Just like, okay, you're an atheist, but you see socialism and communism as a tool of evil, as a tool to keep people enslaved, and you see capitalism and free enterprise as a tool to free people. There isn't a moral equivalency. You can still be an atheist and not have to act as all. They're not all the same.
No.
They're not
Certainly
equal.
not in 2017. Hopefully we can find some common ground.
I would love in these instances to not know who was responsible, right? I don't like that these things happen, but immediately, I don't think Christians, like we said earlier, I don't think about they're not giving me an opportunity to think anybody else does this.
Yeah.
One faith in the world right now and throughout history, it seems, for at least the last 100 or so years, is producing people like this. One faith.
Yeah.
Not multiple, one faith.
I think it's just time we just put away the bullcrap that and Dennis Prager, I think, talked about this when he was on the show, and he's spoken about this a lot. This idea that all cultures are somehow inherently, they share a same playing field of values.
No,
they're equal in values.
Some
they
suck.
just come in. Some really suck. Some values really suck, and even in our culture, some values aren't equal to other values. Some values need to take a back seat. The values of tolerance and understanding needs to take a back seat to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Those values take priority.
Well,
in our country.
And we got some feedback with Mark Duplass, and I'm glad that we got almost all positive feedback, because I know Mark Duplass at one point, we were talking about Planned Parenthood, said like, well, I feel like you want to get into a debate. Here's the thing. We were the first show to host Mark Duplass. And then Ruben and Glenn Beck and a bunch of other conservatives have had him on. Now, we do that a lot. We have these guests on that we've never gone on conservative shows, and then other shows do them. And because other shows do not have the access points that we have to a lot of people in the entertainment industry, they're afraid to question them on anything. And I try to do it as respectfully as possible. And I think I did have a respectful conversation with Mark Duplass, because here's the thing. Civility is very important. But it's not the value that trumps honesty. Civility does have to be based on finding it has to get to the kernel of truth. Truth, by the way, not living your truth, not a truth, the truth. And I do think that the truth, for me, is a more important value. And I certainly think that if you use it as a guiding light, let's go secular. If you use truth as a guiding light as opposed to compassion, tolerance, because here's the thing: a lot of people think tolerance or compassion are congruent with truth. Sometimes they're not.
No.
Sometimes you can be compassionate and be lying to them. Sometimes you can be compassionate and lying to yourself.
Yeah.
So like you're saying, yeah, it's important. Some cultures suck. And the moral equivalencies, let's tie it back in, because this is a story we saw at Huffington Post today, okay? The highlight, it talks about gun violence. People would have different opinions on gun violence. It says the gun debate would change in an instant if Americans witnessed the horrors that trauma surgeons confront every day, and it explains what a bullet does to your body. This is so emblematic of the left. It basically says, I bet if you knew that bullets really hurt people really, really badly, you wouldn't ever want to use one. That's kind of the point.
To quote Barack Obama.
That's a matter of fact, that's exactly why we purchased them. This is a literal example of feels, ouchie, bullet. I bet if you felt the ouchie of a bullet, you would never want to use them. That doesn't change the principle. It doesn't change the intent, it doesn't change the value. The reason that I'm purchasing, by the way, This just goes to show you how stupid editors are at the Huffington Post. That someone said, yeah, just publish that. There's something called the FBI ballistics test. They do it in ballistics gelatin, 10% ballistics gelatin, and it is to measure the effectiveness of a round. Some would say people actually purchase their defensive ammo based on the one that can cause the biggest ouchie. The test measures penetration, expansion, permanent wound cavity, hydrostatic shock. The goal is to create a round that creates the most amount of trauma possible in a short amount of time. Now, why? Because I want to stop the threat from raping my wife or hurting my family. If it really hurts him, that doesn't change why I'm purchasing the bullet.
No, at all.
And by the way, it doesn't delineate, and this is the thing, it doesn't delineate between the good use of firearms. That's, several million incidents every year in the country that the firearms never even, it's never even fired.
You read this article, you're like, you wonder who they're preaching at, because you're thinking they're like, oh, this is because bad guys, they don't really realize how bad they're hurting other people.
Yeah, they don't hurt.
And you realize, oh no, this is about lawful gun owners protecting their families. That's that's their target.
Yeah, I feel like they wrote an article that said the sky is blue. Bullets do damage.
Yeah,
really?
Bullets do damage. And if you knew that they really hurt, you wouldn't buy them because you wouldn't want to hurt the people who are trying to hurt.
Is there anybody in America who doesn't know that bullets hurt? Does anybody think it feels good?
The whole staff at HuffPo, all the white chicks at HuffPo. Salon, we read about this in 2015. They wrote the same thing. It was, want a gun, take a bullet. And it was like this, and the idea of the piece was if you take a bullet and you can survive, then you have the right to use it against your assailant. At what point do we just say, oh, you know what? We don't need to understand and validate everything. You know what?
No.
I don't need to walk a mile in a rapist's shoes. I don't need to take a bullet to be able to shoot a serial killer with a bullet. It's okay. Because morally, I'm okay with firing a hollow point into the chest cavity of a rapist. Like, they just think that you're just supposed to be, at what point are you supposed to be understanding everything? Is it while you're being raped? Did your daddy never hug you enough? No, I had pretty good parents. I just like having sex with dudes. I mean, it's some people. What are you purchasing hollow points? I want to buy these. Do you know these could kill people? Oh my, let's get rid of those. Just give me the condoms, because I'll be raped hard.
Can you put this on, please?
And complimentary Vaseline? Yes, please.
The point I'm drawing this back around to Islamic terrorism, and this is the fundamental different worldview of the left, like you said about cultures. It doesn't change if walking a mile in shoes and validating and understanding, that's nice to a point, but it doesn't change the purpose of your actions. The purpose of me or you purchasing a firearm and the most effective round possible that I can handle with a firearm is to protect loved ones, is to protect the innocent, is to fight evil. The purpose of terrorists who blow up people at an Ariana Grande concert, specifically targeting innocent civilians, is not changed because they find out there's an ouchie. The purpose is the same, and it's evil. It doesn't matter how many times you sit the terrorist down on the couch to listen to him.
I don't know, and when he was ablaze, he called me a terrorist. And I guess until now I just didn't realize how much that bothers me.
Well, did you ever maybe think the reason he resorted to name calling was because he was on fire and maybe he was also in pain?
Wait. You mean that burning Christians alive in cages causes physical pain?
Excruciating.
But how do I reach these terrorists? All right, we'll be back with Gavin McInnes. I hope he can make us laugh.
Wonder. P-O-G.
Many of you are still unaware of the items available at louderwithcrowdershop.com. Not only do they make you look and feel better, but they serve a multitude of purposes. Like our Socialism is for Fag shirts, assisting in identifying potential allies.
I found that shirt very offensive.
I think it's pretty funny.
Or our Bad Hombres Firearm t-shirt, helping you know who to avoid.
Am I to take that shirt to mean that you support some kind of firearm registry?
Or this one.
Hey, look, it's my face.
I hate it.
Though louderwithcrowdershop.com isn't for everyone.
But can I buy the mug from the shop without joining the mug club?
No! The rest of you, check out the merchandise at louderwithcrowdershop.com today.
All right, let's bring him in. There's no way to. Gavin doesn't respect intros.
There's no respect.
He just no respect. Compoundmedia.com, whatever. Who gives a crap? Gavin McInnes, thanks for being with us.
There it
sir.
goes.
Look at my shoulders.
It's horrible.
What do you mean?
I have the exact same body as Grover.
Grover. They brought in the first autistic Muppet to Sesame Street. I always thought that was Super Grover. He had the helmet. He was running into things. It was a horrible message for kids.
There's no way to tactfully do that.
Oh, no. Every kid would put on a cape and a bike helmet and just run into a wall. And then get hurt and then get put in suspension. Gavin McInnes, compoundmedia.com. Thank you for being with us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
I wish you were under, what?
Let's hear your Grover.
I don't remember. What did I just do? Oh, Super Grover!
That's Elmo.
That's Elmo.
Grover was more like, what are you doing? I don't
No,
know.
that's Cookie Monster.
Change.
I don't know.
He had a kind of Eastern European accent.
That's true.
Why are you going to change that page?
That is good. That's a good Grover. But now
Very Yoda-esque.
Well, I think it was Frank Oz. He did all of those.
I think they were both from Chechnya.
Yes, and Elmo just raped people behind the scenes. Who knew? With Elmo?
Elmo, damn you.
We should have seen it coming. Well, I wish it were under better circumstances. Obviously, you have your show, so I'm assuming you covered it earlier today. We just did in the first segment. Gavin McInnes. If Gavin McInnes is president today, what do we do about Islamic terrorism? Let's just start with that.
Okay. First thing we have to do is stop putting our brain into other people's brains and saying they want an open discussion, they want tolerance, they want diversity, they want to show up for the Q&A of our talks. No. And I talked to Talib Starks about this. He worked at a home for wayward youth, and he said some kids should be cut loose. They're irreparable.
You don't see that in a Disney film. Like, they don't show Cuba Gooding as radio just beating the hell out of kids.
You just need some love. You're a bad kid. But I think with ISIS and with the SJWs and with radical Islam, we have to go, we're not compatible. Yeah. I'm done trying to work this out. Building a wall, getting you out of here, making your life hell if you want to try to attack me. We need to make it clear to Islam that we're not friends. Now, there's moderate Muslims that we can live with, but they are anti-Islamic in the sense that they eat, bacon, and drink. They're not true to the Quran if they're friends with us, basically.
Yes, and I'm not going to lie, I often am mistrustful of Muslims who drink and go to strip clubs because I assume they're taking themselves out in the jihad only a few days later. That's the only way to absolve themselves of it.
Muslims are not the red kidney beans of the chili. They are more of the habanero pepper. Just wants to take over everything, and that's the only thing you taste.
Yeah. Well, they're more the botulism of the kidney beans. Yeah. The gas station.
I don't want you to cook for me ever again.
No, I don't. Oh, by the way, one of my writers, Corey, said uru. I don't know.
Uhuru.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, the Proud Boy thing. Okay. Uhuru. I don't know.
So that's what we have to do first, is recognize that we're not the same. And radical Islam is not compatible with the West. I don't think Islam is compatible with the West.
No.
And the next thing we have to do is stop bullshitting and be honest with ourselves about what is going on. Like the Bataclan pictures, we didn't see those for months later. We didn't find out about that they were eviscerating pregnant women and they were removing men's genitalia and sticking them in their mouths. We didn't learn about that for a year after because the authorities censored it. I want to see these photos. Well, I don't want to see them per se, but I want the world to see a maimed 13-year-old girl with nails in her head.
Well, and I always wonder if only, the Assanges and the people who, some people they love to praise now, if only they went after that with the same amount of vigor as they went after, people laughing at naked terrorists at Abu Ghraib. It's like, well, how about them shoving a man's own genitals in his mouth? No. The German Shepherd barking at a naked pile of terrorists who just burn people alive. That's the real torture. That's the corruption. And I'm fine with it. But I've been to Guantanamo Bay. I've seen the prisons. I've watched them play their stupid little Xboxes. And I just wish there were a fraction of the outrage. And that's where I part ways with sort of the I guess sort of Julian Assange breed of the alt-right. I'm like, well, just be even-handed with it, because one is problematic, to use your term. One is there's some corruption, and one is absolute pure evil from the pit of hell. But if you say that, then they become SJWs and they're offended.
I talked to this guy today, Count Dankula, and he's looking at a year in prison because he taught his girlfriend's pug to Sieg Heil. Also in Britain, we have these guys who spent
First of all, that is a poor use of time, because anyone who's ever trained a pug to do anything knows it takes an inordinate amount of time to get them to do anything.
Really? He did a good job. We also had these two guys in Britain who spent 2 years each for putting bacon on a mosque.
Yeah.
One of them died in prison. We also have Tommy Robinson sent to prison for being too anti-Islam. He was almost killed in prison. Yet they have grooming gangs raping girls. They have in the mosque that radicalized this suicide bomber who blew himself up in Manchester at the concert. Surrounding that mosque, there was 16 different terrorists who had died abroad fighting for ISIS.
Yeah.
So Britain is zeroed in on these so-called racist Nazis, whatever, ruining their lives. Meanwhile, they totally tolerate Islam.
Yeah.
And I think it's because their brains can't handle the truth. If there was 22 dogs killed at an Ariana Grande concert, there would be a lot more outrage.
Yeah, it would be game on.
Their brains can digest animal abuse. They just can't fit human abuse in their heads.
No, well, that's what I was talking about. You know, if for example, if you were to bring in a Christian immigrant and they were to say, by the way, yeah, I'm coming in from, was it the Young Turks tried to blame the radical Irish? Was it they tried to blame IRA? Did they actually do that though? Is that confirmed? I'm trying to find it. I don't know. I've heard that. I cannot confirm it. But someone was actually asking me, was it ISIS? Was it IRA? I'm going, where are you hearing this? I said, the Young Turks. So I can't substantiate it. But the fact that it was even circulating to me is absolutely unreal. Here's something. By the way, Jared, you know this, not gay Jared. Have you ever tried to call a mosque, McInnes? You ever tried to call a mosque?
Tried to call a mosque?
Yeah.
No, I've never tried to call a mosque.
They never answer.
No.
And there's no answering machine. Seriously, try and find your local mosques, off hours, try to call.
The phone?
No one answers the phone. We did, I won't say because I don't want to reveal yet, but we were working on a video, and we had a list of mosques. I don't know, a dozen?
And Islamic centers.
No answer, no voicemail. One would almost think it's like a front.
When the cops in Paris invaded all those mosques after Bataclan, they found 100% of them with radical paraphernalia, pamphlets, propaganda. Now, they weren't necessarily a radical mosque.
No.
But if you wanted to go radical, there's your pamphlets. There's your particular part of the room, the free pamphlets room.
It's like their box of free condoms at a public high school. It's just, here you go, how to burn them alive in cages.
Every church has the Joel Osteen rack.
Yes!
We're not proud of it, but it's there.
We got that for you.
Yeah, I know. Well, we were just talking about this where everyone, Facebook, they're talking about anti-Islam blaspheming on Facebook. Here's something people don't think about. Every single Muslim alive is blaspheming against the Christian faith. We don't want him dead. Every single one is following a man who said, Christ is not the guy he says he was. The Jews subverted the text. Everything you believe in that Bible is bullshit until I correct it. And if you don't follow me, we have the right to kill you. Every single Quran-believing Muslim is blaspheming against Christ. Let's assume it's a big spaghetti monster in the sky. But just as far as for using the terminology, none of us want them dead for following a different religion. Why is that never even considered? I am kind of, it's hard to write comedy in days like this. I'm sure you probably, same thing, woke up this morning, you're like, I got to get this out so that I can get to processing it through humor.
I'm too mad to joke around these days. Like Stephen Fry is lambasted by the Irish for blaspheming when Islam sets up little tables. I mean, every time I go to Britain, I go every summer, and there's these tables in every suburb that surrounds London where they sit there and they advocate for Sharia law, where women are human garbage.
Yeah.
And if a white male was to say the exact same things that Sharia says, in fact, I'm going to do that. There's a march against Sharia coming up in New York, and I'm just going to come up with a cigar and go, guys, simmer down. This thing is the best. You get too horny walking down the street, you put a bag on them. These guys want to put a bag on chicks so you don't get too horny. And you know how they're always yapping and yapping, oh, this was rape, that was rape, this was rape. In Sharia law, they don't take any of your testimony seriously. It's half the value. What? And also, you know how you're always horny, your wife never wants to sleep with you? With this Sharia stuff, you get to beat the crap out of her until she blows you. It's the best thing in the world. What are we doing here?
Yeah, you should create that character should be called Sharia Cagney. You dirty infidel! You better rape your wife! You dirty infidel!
Oh my God, I'm going to call him Ahmed Bunker. And he's going to be a guy who says, check it out. It's not so bad.
I'm glad you were able to make me laugh somewhat. Well, a lot of people upset. Okay, listen, I'm not the biggest Trump fan. I don't hate the guy. Everything I ever say about Donald Trump is from a spirit. I think you understand this. I want this country to do well, and I want the administration to serve the country well. I think they've made some mistakes where they've given left gifts. I don't think calling terrorists evil losers is one of them. I think he could have gone further. I would have liked it paired with with the most evil religion there is in the world today, more so going after the actual ideological extremism. But I think a lot of people don't understand this. I think maybe Donald Trump understands it on some level. These people don't fear death. The punishment must be more severe. Shame. They need to be shamed. They need to be shamed physically before they die. There needs to be a message out there right now, like Vlad the Impaler. A lot of people don't realize that Muslims didn't take over his castle. That's the basis of Dracula. You know why? Because all of the guys who tried to come and conquer his home before you were on spikes like human cornfields. He said, all right, this is what we're going to do to your friends. Now, we can't be cruel. We have to be humane. But guess what? Isn't it wonderful that we have tools available to us that are not maiming, that are not permanently damaging, but shame these people, which is the message that they understand, and we can't do it.
They don't admire capitulation. They don't admire benevolence. They see it as weakness. They only admire strength. You see this in Israel very clearly. The wall has been the best thing that ever happened to them. And every time these Israelis kvetch and stroke their beards and go, well, you misunderstand. And the Muslims have a totally different genetic trajectory. Their past 1,000 years has been about strength and toughness and ruthlessness. So when you sit there and you say, hey, in Gaza, we're going to take down 20 homes and bulldoze them, they go, aha, you blinked, Right. I win. And we're guilty of the same thing here in the West. Like this Southern Poverty Law Center crap where they go, the face of terrorism in America is white.
Well, that would be a postcard that I wouldn't buy, but yes.
And you go, the cases they use for this is like some white supremacist killed his roommate, and the guy who flew a plane into the IRS, that's right-wing terrorism, and they have things like some guy who was a Muslim but then he's a Nazi, converted to Muslim, and then killed his Nazi friend. Anyway, they throw everything in the mix for that to get their numbers up on white terrorism. Yep. And then for Muslim terrorism, they start counting things as incidents. So September 11th was one incident. San Bernardino was one incident. Pulse nightclub was one incident. That's now 3 things. And they'll match that up with some rude phone call and some dumb skinhead fight. And you go, you are willfully lying. So when at the beginning,
that's Ed Furlong. That's American History X. That didn't happen. No, I'm pretty sure it did. That's in black and white. No, it's not security footage. It's just it was a creative choice.
Oh my God, half the time they show these pictures too when they come up with these surveys, and it's some Italian Nazi skinheads from 1981 that they just sort of juxtapose with their fake data. Yeah. But that's what I meant at the beginning, when the first step to all of this is to just be honest and have free speech, which Britain doesn't have. And that's why I always say the amendments are in the right order of importance, because the First Amendment tells you that, in 3 months, there was 40,000 PDFs of that jihadist magazine Inspire downloaded in Britain. Yeah. And we could only really get a few that were legally, that we could see were downloaded. Most of them were downloaded on proxies. Yeah. And then we're mad at a guy who trains his pug to Sieg Heil.
I still think it's in poor taste, but I would go back to the WikiLeaks. These people. Why aren't they going after people who downloaded? If they're going to, I think it's an invasion of privacy. I don't want them snooping through my iPhone. But why aren't they going after people who are downloading radical Islamic terrorism pamphlets? I think it's great to entertain. It's fun, the Seth Rich conspiracy theories. But there do need to be some priorities here. And I get the Donald Trump and the Pepe and the trolling and all that's fun and great. But we need to get to the next rung in the ladder. And right now that happens to be a rung that requires people standing up and facing the greatest evil that our time has ever seen. And I mean that. By the way, that's not hyperbole. Everything the Nazis believed, Islamic terrorists believe as well, and they beat the crap out of their women.
Yeah, that's a great point. Hey, I'm about to run out of batteries. Can I get my charger, my phone thing? I mean, my computer thing without screwing up your show?
Well, hold on. Where are we at? 15. We're at 15 minutes. Well, we're gonna have to let you go anyways, I guess, Gavin. Let's have you back soon.
2%. I got 2%, so let's keep going. I didn't know how long this was gonna be.
Okay. No, I'm glad to. I'm kind of moving through some of this with you here. I think that's just hey, okay, let's talk about this. Roger Moore died.
No, I don't like that segue. To get back to Tommy Robinson and Britain, he said today, he goes, "We're the lions. England, everywhere you go in England, there's a bloody lion out front. We used to have that role. We used to be lions, and now we're fucking pussies." And
I thought he was going to go with the lions and then lambs analogy. He kind of just abandoned the analogy and went to an insult.
He said pussycats. He said pussycats.
Okay.
I changed to pussies. But here's a crazy theory. Is it possible that genetically we took all the brave Brits and created America? And the ones that are left are not adventurous genetically?
I think we stole their souls. I do think we did that. I think we did a Shang Tsung and took their soul out of their body with the American Revolution. And I do think, listen, a lot of people move past it because obviously you can be controversial, but you make some very good points. The amendments are in the right order. And this is why I will say, I would never go to a Sharia march in New York. Now, the reason for that is I think people know I've had some very, very serious run-ins with Islam, beyond kind of fun internet stuff. And that's because New York doesn't respect the Second Amendment. See? It would be self-regulating if you could go do a Sharia march, and guess what? You can also exercise your Second Amendment right. But in New York, you can't. And so you're sitting ducks, trying to practice your First Amendment. So you're right, the order is very important.
Right. Well, I'll be paying people who are able to circumvent the insane gun laws in New York and be armed. But yeah, it's funny that to exercise your First Amendment, you need to be surrounded with the Second Amendment in this country. And it's amazing that the founding fathers thought of that. Or, sorry, as Black Lives Matter calls them, our founding foreparents. Because fathers is sexist.
Yes, I think that's like...
Remember a professor who talked about when it's okay to kill white people? He calls them foreparents.
Who said this?
It was a professor, a black guy. I forget what college, but he did a podcast where he talked about when it's okay to kill white people. Oh. And it's a 9-minute answer he gives that gets back into Django Unchained and how the problem with that movie, it was too fictional and blah, blah, blah.
I think it's an easy question to answer. When is it okay to kill white people? When they become radicalized terrorists. There we go. There's a good litmus test. Gavin McInnes, compoundmedia.com, where people can go watch your show. Listen, honestly, man, stay safe there if you're doing that Sharia march in New York. I'd be careful.
Thanks for scaring the crap out of me.
We want you to stick around. We want you on the show. People always, the most requested guests I think we get are Ben Shapiro, Gavin McInnes, and then a lot of people really wanted Mark Duplass back. They really liked him.
Which I think his thing died.
I think his thing died. It froze.
Died, which means it's time to go.
That means it's time to go. You hear something? That was Gavin McInnes. You can follow him on Twitter, compoundmedia.com. We'll be right back wrapping this up, I think.
I've been expecting you, Jihadi Bond.
I was wondering what took you so long to find me.
Let's just say I was caught up with a dinner date.
Well, I hope she knows how to handle that left hook of yours.
She did. Unfortunately for her, it was the right uppercut that did her in.
You always had a way with the ladies, 666.
Well, that's simply because I always understood something you could not.
And what's that?
What you call charm. I call raping them repeatedly and beating them without mercy.
I'll have to put that in my notebook of pickup tips, Mr. Bond.
Enough small talk. Who are you working for? Who is behind this mug club?
You cannot stop it. Besides, it's not who, it's what. His wheels are already in motion, a force which cannot be stopped.
We'll see what YouTube has to say about this.
My club is a force beyond YouTube. It cannot be contained. It cannot be stopped.
You really think that YouTube, with all its power, with all its featured content, with all its young Turks, they cannot take care of your merry band of friends? What happens when your precious mug club is banned, or worse, demonetized?
My club operates outside of YouTube.
Outside YouTube? But that's internet suicide.
You are right, Mr. Bond. YouTube merely provides, shall we say, the platform to grow Mug Club, as YouTube continues its jihad on free speech, effectively using its own power against itself. As users continue to join Mug Club, YouTube is no longer needed to reach one's user base. It is suicide jihadi bond, with YouTube's finger on the trigger.
I've heard enough. Who is behind this supposedly unstoppable Mug Club?
You still don't get it. It is not who, it's
Reach the wizard.
All right, Gavin McInnes. Always glad to have Gavin McInnes on.
Hopefully he's good. He just kind of
disappeared.
Kind of ditched.
No, you never know. He talked about the anti-Sharia parade, and then he's gone. Tomorrow we have Owen Benjamin. Tomorrow we have Jordan Peterson on for an extended chat. So send in your top questions for Jordan Peterson, and then Thursday, Tommy Loren. Thursday, we have Tommy Loren right there in that chair, live in studio. Her first kind of longer interview, I would say, in person since the controversy, and she just took a new job with a pro-Trump, I guess you would say PAC or political group. So we'll be asking her about that, and just tomorrow, I just think it's a good time that Jordan Peterson obviously is a genius. He's a professor. He talks a lot about truth. He talks a lot about philosophy, about theology, about new gender theory, about different equivalencies between religion and virtues and values. So I'm looking forward to sitting and talking with him. Like I said, sometimes we're working through the same issues as you are here on this show. And Nake Jared had a good point during the break where he was talking about, we talked about earlier in the show, how some cultures suck. And, truth, justice, sometimes honesty, these are values that I tend to put in the hierarchy higher than compassion
and understanding.
If they don't intersect.
Yeah.
But you were saying,
I don't think the two are mutually exclusive.
No.
And I think the best thing that can happen in many situations is when you merge the two and you marry the two together. You think of you have an alcoholic father who's just beating his kids every other night. The most compassionate thing, the most understanding and fruitful thing you could do is to administer truth and justice, perhaps in that man's life.
Yeah.
That's the best outcome that you can marry the two, and they don't have to be exclusive.
No, they don't. They're not mutually exclusive, but they also aren't necessarily congruent.
No.
And that's important for people to note. Sometimes compassion, sometimes understanding is not congruent with truth or justice. Sometimes you can say, you know what? Yeah, I understand why you hacked that woman to death because you thought the radio was talking to you. If I thought the radio was telling me to do it too, I maybe would have. But that doesn't change justice here. That doesn't change the truth. Now, of course, I'm taking an extreme example to make a point. It's a good point. They're not mutual. And I think we do. I try to do a good job of that on this show.
No.
I try to be compassionate. I always say, listen, I don't care as much about civility as I do about honesty. But this is one of the few shows where we will have people on and host their opinions and let them speak and have fruitful discussions. And that does listen, I've been honest about it. We're talking about religion today. That stems from my Christian worldview. That is a very Christian worldview, that you can forgive, that you can pray for your enemies, and you can still administer justice. And that's laid out with a very specific set of laws biblically in the Christian faith. That's also, by the way, very unique. We talked about this idea that compassion, that mercy, like I don't need a God, these actually weren't universal values. And unfortunately, it's been perverted where leftists are using these values, which are virtuous, they're using them and turning them into guilt to appease evil. And that's not what Christianity is about. But again, you can still be truthful, you can still be just, and be compassionate. And I think a lot of people sometimes think it's one or the other.
No, yeah, it's not. Especially from a biblical perspective, a Christian perspective, the most kind and loving thing we can do to somebody is to tell them truth and to present them with truth. Yeah, and that's something I think even as we see atheists and agnostic friends can possibly get on board with. I think we can understand that better than people on the far left today.
Well, this is why the left is losing. because they say if you knew what a bullet was like, you wouldn't use a gun. That's their logic. You know,
Yeah.
if we understand Islam, well, you know, okay, let's use that. We've talked about this. It kind of goes back to the idea of the victim culture creating unintended actual victims, right? We've tried to be understanding. We've tried to be multicultural and let Islam have its own identity in Western society. We've done that now. We've tried the left's way for a good portion of time. And we showed you the list in Europe. More and more innocent people have died. So in trying to be understanding because hashtag not all Muslims, because we don't want to offend people, other people die. The fake victims, the Twitter victims, the people who are perpetually offended, the social justice warrior Muslims, the Sean Kings, we have to appease them, the Farrakhans. We don't want them to feel excluded. So you've been doing that. And the macro result, people over here dying. People being blown up at an Ariana Grande concert. So you can fool yourself sometimes to think that just compassion alone, or just civility, just understanding alone, just validation alone is somehow being a good person. Sometimes you're just actually abetting evil. And you need to find where justice and truth, civility, honesty, compassion intersect. And you need to know which values are held high. Kind of like we talked about with Gavin in the Constitution. We have the First Amendment, Second Amendment. We have these in that order, a specific order. I think truth specifically needs to be higher than compassion for the sake of compassion. We'll talk more about that with Jordan Peterson tomorrow for a full hour. So tune in. Again, this is Free Louder with Crowder Week.
Hashtag Free Crowder.
Hashtag Free Crowder. Hashtag. That's how you know it's good.
It only takes